You're welcome again. Now we begin with a rather sad story that a former presidential spokesperson, Dr. Doyin Okupe, has passed away. According to family sources, Okupe died on Friday morning in Lagos at the age of 72 after a prolonged battle with cancer. The late politician served as Special Assistant on Media and Publicity to former President Olusegun Obasanjo and later as Senior Special Assistant on Public Affairs to ex-President Goodluck Jonathan. He was also the Director General of the Labour Party presidential campaign in 2023. A medical doctor by profession, Okupe joined the LP from the People's Democratic Party before the 2023 general elections. However, he resigned from the party in January 2024, about 10 months after the elections. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has expressed deep sorrow over the passing of Doyin Okupe, extending condolences to his family, friends, and also associates. In a statement signed by his special advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, Tinubu described Okupe as a bold and articulate advocate for national development. The president noted that Okupe's wealth of experience and insight remained invaluable to Nigeria and that his death leaves a significant void. He also commiserated with the government and the people of Ogun State, particularly the Ikperu Remo community, where Okupe made a lasting impact. Now, renowned Nigerian novelist and writer Mabel Shegun has died at the age of 95. Beyond her literary contributions, Shegun was also a tennis champion, broadcaster, and diplomat. Her family announced her passing in a statement on Thursday. The statement noted that funeral arrangements would be communicated in due course. She leaves behind a legacy of outstanding achievements, particularly her seminal 1965 novel, My Father's Daughter, which remains a classic in Nigerian literature. And in the meantime, President Bola Tinubu has joined a host of sympathizers in mourning the passing of Mabel Shegun. In a statement issued on Friday by his special advisor on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the president extended his condolences to her family, the literary community, and admirers of the late author. And in other news, the Federal High Court in Abuja is hearing a case of alleged money laundering against former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello. During proceedings, the court listened to testimonies from several witnesses regarding allegations brought against Bello by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Among those who testified are Abimbola Williams, a compliance officer with the Kogi State Government House Administration, and Nicholas Ohehomon, an internal auditor at the American International School in Abuja. Both witnesses presented their testimonies and were cross-examined by the defense and prosecution counsels. Still in Abuja, the legal counsel to Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, Victor Giwa, has dismissed her 6-month suspension by the Senate, arguing that it violates a court order. The suspension followed her heated exchange with Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Giwa insisted the Senate's action is unlawful as a court order had restrained the Senate Committee on Ethics and Privileges from taking further steps in the matter. He maintains that Akpoti-Uduaghan has the constitutional right to seek legal redress when her civil rights are violated. The Nigerian Bar Association and opposition parties have also criticized the Senate for failing to grant Akpoti-Uduaghan sufficient opportunity to present her sexual harassment complaint against Akpabio.
All over Nigeria, and in fact globally, because the way this thing played out, I'm not sure Natasha was given a fair hearing. I don't know what was presented, what the committee saw, or what was heard there that gave rise to the decision to suspend her. But from what we have been following, it seems as if it was already a done deed that this woman must go down for even daring to come out to say that she was sexually harassed by the top man in the Senate. We believe that it's already a done deed that she will go down. Anybody who has been in the system, any woman knows that we suffer silently sexual harassment in our line of work. And for anybody who cannot tolerate what is going on, I have had occasion to slap men in close quarters. But, you know, maybe these are men, I don't come out to say that, you know, so and so sexually harassed me or not that, because I have my own way of dealing with it. But I believe that not giving Natasha the opportunity to say how things went down, you know, and in the open, I think there is a kind of guilt, something there.
Go ahead to do it and let's see, right? And then another
issued a decisive ruling on the Rivers State Assembly crisis. Now, that's addressing the alleged defection of 27 lawmakers to the All Progressives Congress. Now, the justices emphasized that defection must be substantiated, requiring both the departing and receiving parties to acknowledge the switch. In this case, the People's Democratic Party confirmed the lawmakers' membership, while the APC denied it, effectively invalidating the defection claim. The court reaffirmed that party membership is an internal matter. Regarding legislative authority, the Supreme Court ruled that the power to declare a seat vacant lies solely with the House, not the executive. Additionally, it dismissed the invocation of the doctrine of necessity, stating that it cannot be used to justify unconstitutional actions. On local government elections, the court examined the position, or rather provision, of the Electoral Act 2022, clarifying the distinct roles of the Independent National Electoral Commission and the State Independent Electoral Commission. The ruling centered on upholding constitutional principles and electoral laws, ensuring due process and legality prevail. The Rivers State House of Assembly has extended its ultimatum to the chairman and commissioners of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission by another 72 hours after the initial 48-hour deadline expired. The resolution was reached during plenary following a motion by Enemi George, leading the House to vote in favor of extending the deadline to Monday, 10th March, to allow Justice Enebili to appear before them. The House had initially planned to go on recess, but suspended the break after Deputy Speaker Dumle Mao moved a motion to prioritize addressing the RCEC matter. Meanwhile, Speaker Martin Amaole noted that the House has formally recorded Governor Siminalayi Fubara's failure to present the 2025 budget for consideration, despite an earlier 48-hour ultimatum issued to him. And now we go on a break, and when we get back, more news on the other side.
What it means.
Welcome back. Now let's go back to Rivers State. Now, Governor Siminalayi Fubara has approved the appointment of a new Vice-Chancellor for the Rivers State University. He is Professor Isaac Zeb Opibi. Until his latest appointment, Professor Zeb Opibi had served in several positions at the university, growing through the ranks from examination and records officer, head of department, faculty sub-dean, dean of student affairs, and more. One of which was the director of the ICTC, among others. One of his several achievements is the introduction of electronic voting for students' union elections. He also delivered the 79th inaugural lecture of the university. The Chief of Air Staff, Hassan Abubakar, has visited the victims and families affected by the recent accidental bombing in Zamfara State. On 10th January, several civilians, including members of the Zamfara Community Protection Guard and local vigilantes, were killed in an airstrike by the Nigerian Air Force in Tunga Kara, Marudun local government area. The strike, intended to target terrorists, tragically claimed unintended victims. In a statement on Thursday, Kabiru Ali, Deputy Director of Public Relations and Information for the Nigerian Air Force, described the incident as a painful deviation from the force's commitment to protecting civilians. The Air Chief accepted responsibility for the casualties and reaffirmed the Air Force's dedication to safeguarding lives. Now, for more on this, we're joined by security and expert personnel, Darlington Umaru from Lagos State. You're welcome, Darlington. Thank you very much for joining us here this afternoon. So let's start by asking, is acknowledging the error and taking responsibility for civilian deaths enough?
Well, at least it's a step in the right direction. It was an accident. It was not a deliberate act. And if the Air Force is claiming a responsibility and then apologizing to the persons, and beyond that, they have also gone ahead to promise that they were going to help financially, and then provide some amenities for the people, even provide repair or rebuild houses that were damaged, and then provide the motorbikes that were also damaged in the course of that area strike. This is one of the areas, some of the accidents that do occur, particularly when bandits and terrorists, try to make use of areas that are habited by the citizenry.
So we had a similar case in Sokoto before that, and also in Kaduna as well. Shouldn't heads be rolling by this time, or at least investigations be undertaken to ascertain what exactly really went on?
The Chief of Air Staff actually talked about that. Investigations were actually carried out, but should the Chief of Air Staff had waited for investigations to be concluded before coming to formally identify with those who lost their loved ones? The answer is apparently no. Between January 10th and now, it's over a month. And so apparently for the Air Force to have come to say, okay, yes, we claim responsibility, and he particularly said it was his fault, I think that's good enough. And then they went beyond that, talking about how to ameliorate the situation before those who lost victims, particularly the vigilante group.
How do we forestall future error bombings, given how this almost became too frequent?
Well, I don't know what you meant by being too frequent. It's one of those things that normally will occur during war situations. That of Kaduna was not by an aircraft, but was by the unmanned combat area vehicle that was used. For that of Kaduna, it was there was no coherence between in between the two intels, talking about artificial and human intel. I think they based their decisions by the soldiers. That of Kaduna was by the soldiers, and they based their decision on artificial intelligence, which was not corroborated by human intelligence. That was why we had that situation in Kaduna. Particularly, again, that was an area, that area in Kaduna was area where bandits usually were found. And so, as at the time that unmanned combat area vehicle, struck, it was struck at a time when the human intelligence did not actually work with the artificial intelligence. But for that of Zamfara State, it was done by the Air Force and not by the Army. That of Kaduna was by the Army, but that of Zamfara was done by the Air Force. And so the Air Force has come out to say, okay, we claim responsibility. As much as the terrorists, and they are all terrorists now, whether you call them bandits or pure terrorists like Boko Haram or ISWAP, they are now, the courts have declared them terrorists. And so as much as some of them mix up with the people. This is the problem the military has had over time. In most times, when these people kidnap victims, it's not as if the military does not know where to find them. But the challenge rescue these persons without collateral damages. And in most times, these terrorists, they use these persons they kidnap as human shield. That's why it becomes so difficult in most times for the military to actually, move swiftly, attack these people swiftly, and then get these persons out. So it's an accident. It's painful that it happened, and then it's painful. There's nowhere in the world where you don't have such things happening at times of war.
No, Mr. Umaru,
like you said, what should we do to minimize all of such accidents?
Well, Mr. Umaru,
that will be left to in the hands of the military.
So you refer to it as an accident. It's an accident when it happens once, but if you have it happen 4 times, even if you say one of those times was by the Nigerian Army and not the Air Force, one time is an accident, but continuously that doesn't seem like an accident. It begins to raise questions. Perhaps maybe the methods are wrong. Perhaps maybe along with artificial intel, there should be boots on the ground gathering intel as well. Considerations here have to be given if it's 4th time that we're experiencing this kind of a thing, don't you think?
Well, I think to some extent I want to agree with you, and I'm sure that the military at this point in time would have looked into all of that and begin to think of how to reconcile artificial and human intelligence before striking. But again, sometimes, like I said, I still refer to it as a war accident that do happen at times of war.
Okay.
As painful as it could be.
True. So the governor of Zamfara State said earlier that the government's non-negotiation policy with bandits was paying off. Do you agree with this?
Well, I do not agree with him. I don't want to agree with him because his predecessor adopted the kinetic approach at a point in time, and there was ceasefire. In Katsina, I don't know if you are aware, recently, there was this kinetic approach that was adopted in part of Katsina, and the bandits actually came out and then dropped some weapons and agreed not to strike again in those areas. And so in most times, it's not just the war thing that wins war. It's sometimes you adopt the non-kinetic approach. Just that his predecessor didn't follow up with the complete agreement he had with the bandits. And so they had to go back to the forest because they were not being paid as agreed for them to leave or drop the criminal activity they were indulging. Of course, you saw what like the chief of air staff said, Abubakar, beyond assisting financially, beyond rebuilding those houses that were destroyed, beyond providing the motorbikes that were also destroyed, he has also provided amenities like solar propelled pipe-borne water that will supply pipe-borne water to the communities. All of this will help ameliorate the sufferings in those places. I don't know if you know Zamfara very well. Zamfara in most parts is a dry land. And so somebody is providing all of that. I think they should be commended. But like you said, in most times, the military needs to go beyond all of this, think very well, use artificial and human intelligence, reconcile them at a time before the command for airstrike is approved.
Well, Mr. Darlington Umaru, I'm happy we agree on that one. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure once again.
Thank you. Flight operations remain suspended, leaving air travelers stranded after a powerful rainstorm wreaked havoc at Akure Airport in Ondo State, severely damaging the control tower and terminal buildings. The airport, located in Akure North, suffered extensive structural and operational setbacks due to the storm. Reports say the engineering building, which houses critical flight operations equipment, was also affected. Beyond the airport, the storm caused widespread destruction across several communities in Akure North LGA, damaging a public primary school, churches, residential buildings, and vehicles. Residents of My Alo community, a bustling commercial hub in Kano State, have raised an alarm on uncompleted road projects suspected to triggering respiratory ailments, which they say has led to the deaths of 2 persons in the community. They say that despite the road being cleared of debris by the construction company and filled with sand, it has generated a dust haze that has become harmful to citizens. Some of them spoke to News Central's television crew, and they tell us more. Our correspondent, Emmanuel Bagudu, brings this to us.
Located at an intersection between 3 local government areas of Nasarawa, Gezawa, and Kumbutsu, My Alo community is undergoing a transformative makeover, a constituency project by Senate Representative Rufai Hanga. However, this has come with a heavy price, as an abandoned road project filled with sand is now generating a dust haze which some in the community say has triggered respiratory illnesses among residents of the community.
Da ina mai tabbatar ma wa'anda suke da tsohuwar asma ma ta tashi akan wannan hanya
I make bold to say that those with history of asthma have suffered from this dust. Because despite sprinkling water, in fact, those that took the pain to sprinkle water on this road are now tired. Very dangerous dust causing serious health challenge. In fact, a lot of people have resolved to stay indoors. Everyone plying this route knows this dust is dangerous and can cause a lot of ailments. They started this work with great passion, but all of a sudden they stopped. For 1 month now, they have not resumed. Some of them are not mincing words in narrating the negative impact of the dust haze, alleging that 2 residents have died as a result of respiratory complications following the haze, which has now become a permanent sight.
Akwai kaman wanda muke tunani wannan kurar ita ce ta kwasin din rasuwarsu sakamakon asma da suke dauke da ita saboda kurar ta yi yawa. Dan magana ta Allah har cikin gida na har kan gado na duk wannan kurar ce wanda muke tunanin wannan kurar.
There is this one we suspect this dust killed him since he allegedly had asthma. Because even up to my house, on my bed, this dust has taken over. A total of 2 persons died due to this dust. The first disease comes from the area called Patient Amin Bilale. She is a woman. Today makes it 8 or 9 days since her demise. Then the other disease just came to live with his brother to attend school here. And he was diagnosed with asthma, and they say it is the dust that caused it. He was asked whether he worked in a dusty environment, and we said no. The doctor said it's the dust that caused it. Even myself, I am affected because my wife is currently suffering from constant cough. We went to the Sanusi hospital at Yankaba, and they told us it's the dust. Every day is dust in every home.
There are people
that lost their lives due to the suspected complications from asthma. Yes, they died from asthma due to this route. One of them from Nasarawa local government, one of them from Ubuntu. There is one also currently in the state specialist hospital, popularly called Asibiti Nasarawa. Even business owners also expressed their sad reality, saying that their businesses are now on the verge of closure and called for urgent steps to be taken. This road, despite the repair, no success has been achieved because all we sell here are being damaged.
It's a plea coming at a very auspicious time from the people of Gezawa, Nasarawa and Kumbutsu local government area of Kano State. It is hoped that authorities concerned will heed to the cries of these people to save them from the impact of this dust pollution. In Kano for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
Now, medical experts and stakeholders are calling on residents of Abia State to prioritize eye health through regular screenings to prevent irreversible vision loss. Eye care for all was the center theme of this year's World Glaucoma Day, marked in Abia State with the wife of the Deputy Governor, Chidera Emetu, representing the governor's wife. The event was preceded by an awareness walk around Umuahia, the state capital, before a formal gathering at the JAAC building. News Central's Chinwell Gilly reports that the state government is offering free eye tests and treatments throughout the week to support residents.
Most people with glaucoma are not aware of it. Most glaucoma patients have 0 symptoms. But if you deal with the disease early, you will have a greater chance of preserving your vision for years to come. In Abia State, we recognize the significance of addressing glaucoma and other eye health issues. That's why we have implemented initiatives to improve access to quality eye care services, especially for vulnerable populations.
You don't appreciate nature when you can't see, or if you try to close your eyes and you walk in darkness, it's a terrible experience. So if you can halt it or stop it, it's actually the best. And I'd like us to understand what glaucoma is. Glaucoma simply is hypertension that affects the eyes.
It means that if you look at the whole of Nigeria and plot the graph of those that have glaucoma, you find more of them in the southeast. of about 10,251 patients that came in, we had 2,900 and something, 949 that had glaucoma. Interestingly, when they come, we have more than 70% of them that do not know this.
Welcome back. The International Federation of Journalists is calling for the immediate release of Blessed Mlanga, head of news at Heart and Soul Television in Zimbabwe. Mlanga was arrested on the 25th of February and charged with inciting public violence after covering press conferences where a war veteran called for President Emerson Mnangagwa's resignation. The FIJ, or rather IFJ, has condemned the arrest, describing it as a blatant attack on press freedom and urging authorities in Harare to drop the charges. Mlanga's lawyer, Chris Mkay, accused the state of criminalizing journalism by equating it to terrorism. The case has drawn widespread criticism from opposition parties and media freedom groups who argue that it reflects the ZANU-PF government's disregard for democratic values. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced the temporary suspension of tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico, offering short-term relief to businesses after recent market disruptions. The delay is effective until the 2nd of April, follows a sharp market decline triggered by new tariffs of up to 25%. On to other matters, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has met with EU leaders ahead of a crucial summit addressing growing concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's shift away from Kiev and its European allies. The summit gathered all 27 EU leaders, follows last week's tense meeting between Trump and Zelensky. The fallout has been significant, with Washington suspending military aid and intelligence sharing critical support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia's invasion. As tensions rise, the summit aims to redefine Europe's role in supporting Ukraine and countering the evolving dynamics in its relationship with the U.S. And now, for more on this, I'm joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagen. Afia, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us again on the 3 p.m. news. Afia, please, if you tell us what's the latest from the front line in Ukraine.
Well, Ukraine has been bombarded overnight. Its energy and gas infrastructure has been targeted and attacked by Russian missiles and drones. Now, the Ukrainian energy minister has accused Russia of deliberately targeting civilian targets. And remember, this comes after a week where the U.S. has suspended military aid to Ukraine as well as intelligence sharing. That intelligence sharing perhaps could have prevented these attacks. So officials in Odessa and Kharkiv say the waves of attacks have left infrastructure damaged and homes on fire. Several people in Kharkiv have been injured, while the military administration in Ukraine's eastern region of Donetsk says the Russian glide bombs have injured 7 people. 2 of those were children. Now, French-made Mirage jets have been deployed in this war for the first time by the Ukraine. That's according to the Ukrainian Air Force, and the Kremlin has denied suggestions overnight the attack was in response to the ceasefire proposal suggested by Emmanuel Macron. Now, in the past few minutes, Donald Trump said he is considering sanctions and tariffs on Russia because of this overnight wave of strikes. He wrote on Truth Social, his social media platform, he said, based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, I am strongly considering large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. To Russia and Ukraine, get to the table right now before it's too late. Thank you. So that's the latest from Donald Trump. He posted that on his Truth Social platform in response to the bombing overnight in Ukraine.
Okay, well, thank you for that latest, Afia. But last night, EU leaders promised to send billions in defense. It's a planet called RIM. I don't know if it's an anagram. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Ursula von der Leyen is calling it rearmed, basically. So it's about Europe coming together. She's promised 800 billion euros in extra defense spending for this plan called Rearm Europe. She said that there was a clear and present danger and that Europe is determined to act with the scale, speed and resolve that the situation demands. And it's about investing more in the military, investing more in military capabilities. Now, Hungary has said that they will not be taking part in this rearmament plan and says that it could ruin Europe. So that's one European country that has already opted out of this kind of Rearm Europe plan. Now, the UK no longer part of the European Union, but it is thought that today Keir Starmer will be meeting with EU leaders to see how the UK can support and be involved in this EU rearmament programme.
So what's the latest on peace talks between Ukraine and Russia then?
Well, it's thought that there's a delegation who will be travelling to Saudi Arabia on Tuesday to take part in peace talks. Now, Donald Trump said that he is attending. I'm not sure if he himself is attending or the US is attending, but he said he will be attending. Volodymyr Zelensky will be in Saudi Arabia, but not necessarily at the talks. Perhaps the UK and France might be present as well. These talks are taking place in Saudi Arabia, and it's hoped that Russia could come to the table as well. So these talks due to take place potentially in Riyadh. There'll be diplomats around them that'll be doing sort of getting down to the minutiae of the peace talks. Will we see Trump and Zelensky meet in Saudi Arabia? Perhaps. We don't know. It will be the first time they would have met since that disastrous meeting 1 week ago today. But those peace talks are going to be progressing in Saudi Arabia this coming Tuesday.
Well, thank you very much, Afia. We will have you subsequently join us to give us more on the details from Ukraine. Thank you. At least 22 people have been killed and several others injured following violent clashes between rival factions of the Los Tiguerones drug cartel in Ecuador's port city of Guayaquil. The gun battles, which highlight Ecuador's worsening drug-related violence, involved two factions of the powerful gang, which operates within a large criminal network in the region. Ecuador has become a key transit hub for drug cartels from Colombia and Peru, with its ports serving as gateways for cocaine shipments to international markets. Experts warn that local gangs are growing stronger, intensifying the cycle of violence. In response to the Ecuadorian government, or rather in response to this, the Ecuadorian government has declared a state of emergency in several provinces, including Goiás, where Guayaquil is located. And our sports. Ahead of the Made in Niger Delta Sports Festival in April, Akwa Ibom State Commissioner for Sports Paul Bassi conducted an inspection of key sporting facilities to assess readiness for the event. Accompanied by officials from the ministry, Bassi toured the Dakada Skills Acquisition Center, evaluating the football field, tennis, basketball and volleyball courts, as well as hostels and medical facilities. At the West Itam Sports Center, reviewing rehabilitation work and condemned vandalism of public infrastructure. Bassi announced plans to establish a stadium management committee for facility maintenance, thereby reaffirming the state's commitment to delivering a successful event and showcasing its investment in sports development. The tournament is scheduled to take place from April 1st to April 9th. In more sports, Samuel Eto'o has been given the green light to run for the CAF, the CAF Executive Committee, after the Court of Arbitration for Sports overturned a decision by the Confederation of African Football that barred him from contesting in the upcoming elections. The ruling comes as a major victory for the former Cameroonian international, who had challenged CAF's decision to exclude him. With the ban lifted, Eto'o can now pursue a leadership role within the African football's governing body. As president of the Cameroon Football Federation, he has been a vocal advocate for football development across the continent. And that's all this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories we brought your way. Nigeria's air chief visits Zamfara airstrike victims, takes responsibility for civilian casualties in January 10 air bombing. And former presidential aide Doyin Okupe dies at 72. Also, international journalists group demand release of Zimbabwean journalist Blessed Mlanga. Now, do remember, now you can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number being displayed on your screen right now. And do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can also watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Able TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.